Welcome to VidMark, a podcast to give you the video marketing knowledge to always hit the mark. Let us help build your confidence with video strategy and content creation best practices. Join us weekly for pro tips and guest interviews as we explore the powerful communication tool of video. It's time to boost your business. Let's talk video. All right, welcome back to the VidMark podcast. I'm very excited to have Jonathan Baldock on the show. Jonathan works to build strategies that make clients more productive and successful. And his specialties are enterprise sales, relationship management, customer first approach, technology, passive recruiting, talent acquisition, employment brand, recruitment media, social media and recruitment and advocacy. And today you're going to be talking about social HP, right, Jonathan?
Yeah, that's right. Hey, thanks for having me on, Brian.
Yeah, excited to have you on the show. I guess I will preface for the audience, if you hear talking in the background, my fiance was taking a call and we have a tree that's being cut down in the backyard. So if you hear chainsaws, that's what it is. But yeah, Jonathan, maybe you can tell us, I'm really happy that you reached out. And I think what you have to offer with Social HP is super powerful for any organization. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your background, a little bit about Social HP?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So my background, I actually spent close to 10 years at LinkedIn. And my first 5 and change were building social media recruitment strategies for LinkedIn's largest global customers. So if they needed to hire 5,000, 10,000, or however many people, we would help them to do that with LinkedIn tools, and so that they could offset big spend when they were working with agencies, for example. And then the last 4 and change years with LinkedIn, it was on a platform called LinkedIn Elevate. And LinkedIn Elevate was LinkedIn's social sharing platform, or their employee advocacy platform. And so that was really all about helping companies utilize the power of their employees' voice to extend the breadth and reach of the company, and sharing messages like thought leadership, industry news, and company content, using it as an evergreen channel. And so typically their use cases were talent acquisition, marketing, so building out the knowledge and around the top of the marketing funnel, social selling, and brand reputation. And then now I've been consulting for Social HP for the last 6 months, and it's the next generation of employee advocacy platforms. So it's solved some of the big problems that I was experiencing when I was at LinkedIn. And so I'm really happy to be a part of it and to be able to talk to you about it today.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for kind of giving us that rundown. Man, LinkedIn, what a fun company to work for with how much growth they've experienced in the last, decade. And I think they were kind of now they're starting to become like Facebook of the business world, which is, I don't know if they like that analogy, but
It's
that's
a fair
how
one.
I feel.
Yeah. When I started there were 600 employees and 80 million members. When I left, there were 13,000 employees, and right now there's 740 million members. So definitely a lot of growth. It was an awesome company to work for. It's now owned by Microsoft, which actually has only made it better because it's a wholly owned subsidiary. So it's got all the benefits of LinkedIn with all the money and power of Microsoft behind it, which is great. And the people at LinkedIn are fantastic. Really, really bright and amazing people. And it's one of those rare times that you work for a company where the products that you sell, the value of those products exceed the value of the price, totally. Or the cost of the price. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, what a cool experience. And then maybe you can tell us a little bit about more of the I forget the exact word you're using, but employee engagement or employee advocacy.
Employee advocacy, yeah. So the idea behind it, you've got 3 buckets of content. You've got owned, paid, and earned. And owned are the assets that you have. So your actual .com, so your corporate website, that's an owned asset. You've also got LinkedIn pages, so your LinkedIn company page. You've got maybe a corporate Facebook page, et cetera, a corporate Twitter handle. And so those are all the assets that you have, and you're going to have followers for those and visitors for those. And you're doing your best to try to grow that audience and draw people to them. And so a lot of the ways people or organizations do that is they'll use paid campaigns. And a paid campaign on a platform like LinkedIn, you can be super specific. So you can say, I want to spend this much money. I want to target these people for this period of time with this ad or this campaign. And the specificity is amazing. So you can say location, level, industry, you name it. Any kind of information that people populate into LinkedIn, you can narrow your targeting on that. So it's really ideal. But that can be costly. And it's really hard to keep that channel flipped on all the time. So you definitely want to add customers, you definitely want to grow your business, but the amount of money to keep that machine going is a lot of lifting. And so there's the next chapter, which is earned media. And earned media is really around, if you do a corporate pay, corporate update, all the likes and comments and shares, that's a story that you've shared and you've earned those likes and comments. But let's look at a typical company, like a typical small company on LinkedIn. If they have 50 employees, the average company with 50 employees has somewhere in the neighborhood of 800 to 1,000 followers. And that includes the 50 people that work there. So if you do a company page update, you might reach somewhere in the neighborhood of 800 to 1,000 people. The average person or the average member on LinkedIn has somewhere close to 800 connections. So if they share, or if you just get one employee to share that update, you've doubled your reach. And if you get all 50 employees to share that update, you've reached 40,000 people. So now that same message that went out by the company only reached 800 to 1,000 is now reaching 40,000. So you've got 40 times the reach right away just through your employees, which is pretty brilliant. And then on LinkedIn, employees are twice as trusted. Because if we're connected and you share an update and I'm like, oh, cool, like, hey, here's that update. I already know you, already trust you, I already like you, we've already got this connection. I'm much more likely to be receptive to the story that you're sharing. So the level or the amount of engagements that employees generate is much, much higher when you look at the total level of sort of reach versus engagement. So the other piece of this is that if you're sharing through employees, first of all, they're proud to work at your company, hopefully. You've got a great brand, they want to be there. So they want to be able to talk about the company. It's just they don't know how and where to find this information. So a tool like Social HP brings in all thought leadership that's valuable to their networks, industry news that's valuable to their networks, and company content. And as long as they're not just a shill for the company, meaning buy this, buy this, buy this, product, service, 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 which would obviously turn off their networks pretty fast. If they're sharing a nice blend of content, then that really drives a lot of value. And so we had a really nice sharing recommendation at LinkedIn, which was 3-2-1. So that was 3 pieces of thought leadership, 2 pieces of industry news, and then 1 piece about the company. And so if you kept that ratio, then you would keep their networks engaged, and then that would drive a lot of that positive visibility. And even if you're sharing industry news or thought leadership, as long as the employee's brand is out there and you're elevating their profile, you're turning them into thought leaders, you're making them more approachable, which is making your brand more approachable because they're representing the brand. So all of this is sort of part and parcel into not just saying like, oh, here's an ad, I hope you click, please buy my stuff. Now we're having a conversation over a long period of time. And so if you think about, if you're in the market for a car and you're driving down the road, if you see a Mercedes sign, you don't say, oh, well, I guess I have to go buy that Mercedes now. It takes a lot of touch points. If you end up buying a Mercedes, it's because you've talked to friends, you've done research, you've watched videos. Of course, you visited the dealership, you've talked to people. So that decision journey can be influenced. And some people's decision journey is pretty short, but a lot of them are very long. So that's the value of having this evergreen channel where you can just be building this relationship, strengthening the visibility of your brand, making an emotional connection for the audience that matters to you. And your employees are connected to your existing customers and they're connected to your prospects. So building those relationships are going to be key to growing the business. And then if I loop back over to that first example with 50 employees with 800 or 1,000 followers for that company, and the employees can reach 40,000, the average company that has 40,000 followers has closer to 2,000 employees. So a company with 50 employees can now compete with a company that has 2,000 employees just if they get their employees sharing content. So it becomes the great equalizer. A small company can represent themselves in a much bigger way by utilizing the assets that they already have, which are all the people that they work with.
Yeah. Wow. That's super powerful stuff. And the way I'm hearing it is Yeah, advertising dollars can only go so far. Yeah, like you said, there's the campaign ends, or yeah, to be able to compete with those bigger guys, you'd have to be spending that much more money. Not very many people have those resources, but leveraging, yeah, like you mentioned, the assets, which are your people, and which can actually be a more profound I don't know, way for customers to connect, because people connect with other people. And I think that's a big problem that a lot of these brands have. They become like this faceless entity that
Totally.
does this cool stuff, but at the end of the day, it's the people that run it that you're making those connections with. So I think that's awesome, really powerful. And I remember when we first had our conversation, I was just like, wow, I wish I would have known about this years ago, that you
Yeah.
had this opportunity. Because when I was working on a marketing team, we had a pretty good size, couple hundred people that worked at our organization. And I just thought to myself, if we just had everyone share it or like we'd get some micro virality to a degree.
Of course.
It's
And you don't have to convince 740 million members that your company is amazing, because not all 740 million LinkedIn members are going to be your potential customer. You only really need to convince the people that you want to sell to. Well, if most of the people you want to sell to are connected to your employees because they're existing customers that you want to grow that relationship, or they're connecting to your prospects, then why not utilize that channel? Because it's the most effective and the most cost efficient. And to give you like a cost comparison, the smallest campaign I ever ran for a client when I was at LinkedIn was $10,000. It ran for a few weeks, and it was, of course, very effective, great targeting. If I have 50 employees, the cost for an employee advocacy platform for an entire year is $4,500. So it's half the cost of a 3-week campaign, and I get to run it for the entire year, and I get to reach all the people I care about for the entire year. So it's not really comparable in the pricing, because the ability to control the message and drive that relationship forward is really, really key in being able to utilize these kinds of platforms.
Definitely. And yeah, I do want to dive into the platform itself a little bit, but
Sure.
maybe bring it back a little bit to, some of the people that might be listening here, maybe they only have 3 or 5 employees. I think this is
Yep.
still a beneficial tool for them. Maybe you can talk about like how you guys came up with the 3-2-1 approach. I really like that. I think that's a really good methodology of providing value, and then saying, hey, this is our how good our company is, come check it out.
Right.
Whereas people probably get that flipped on its head. They do like 7 pieces, or let me get my math right, they do 5 pieces of like, hey, look how special we
Company.
are, and then
Yeah.
1 piece of like value add. So I think that's a really good methodology you guys have.
Yeah, you want to provide value before you have an ask, and so this is a great way to do it. I, to be honest, did not come up with the 3-2-1. So the geniuses at LinkedIn, and the ones that were tied close in with their clients, they were the ones that came up with that right ratio. And not to say that it's perfect, but it is a really great example of just thinking conceptually in that vein, which is provide value before you're asking people to engage on a product or a business. And the other point to that is in providing thought leadership and industry news, you're also telling the community that's connected to your employees that our employees are smart and they know the industry. So thought leadership and industry news does that. So you're elevating the profile of your employees, and turning them into thought leaders and trusted advisors is a great thing, because then when you're later down the road, 6 months later, when that employee needs to reach out to that prospect and say, hey, are you open to having a meeting? That prospect has seen all of these really thoughtful and insightful updates the entire time. So now there's a reputation that employee has as being a thought leader in the industry. So they're more recognized, more approachable, and they're more willing to have that meeting with the sales rep, for example.
Totally. I think that's what's interesting about like kind of social media or just promotion in general, is that, yeah, you have to put in that work on the front end, and you don't know when you will need to double down or capitalize on the work that you did. For example, yeah, that person that's reaching out for a call, if they hadn't put in all that work, they wouldn't be like in the position that they are. Or sometimes it leads to speaking engagements.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can lead to, I don't know, brand deals, any number of things. A lot of good outcomes can happen from putting in that front end work. And maybe you can talk about how social HP simplifies or streamlines that process for employees.
Yeah, I'll touch on a few things. And just to continue on that vein, So salespeople tend to be short-sighted. I've always been short-sighted. I've been a salesperson for a long time. If I can cut corners and get to the end faster, I'll run straight at it and I'll take that. But if if employees understand the value and what they're going to get long term, then usually they'll raise their hand and say, "This sounds great." The challenge is trying to get people to do it because you're already doing your job. And then if I come to you and I say, "Hey, you're doing a great job. I see you're really busy. I just want to add this other thing on." So what I want you to do is become a social media marketing expert. I want you to be really good at picking content. I also want you to be really good at writing copy because you're going to have to put in a little prelude intro before your message. If I phrase it that way, employees are going to be taking that hand down, right? So that's one note. It can be a little intimidating for the employees, especially ones that are not already socially engaged. The second thing is the uptick. Even if you get people to raise their hands. So let's say you're in a bigger company, you've got 1,000 employees and you get 500 of them to raise their hand and say, "This is great and I want to be on this platform." Like most things, follow through is the hardest part, especially with SaaS products. Like it's hard to get people to actually log in and do stuff. When I worked at LinkedIn, we had a tool, single sign-on. It was called Okta. And when you signed in, it would give you access to all the different apps, all the different programs that you would have access to as an employee. I had so many apps that I could access. Like I think I had somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 apps. I only used like 5 or 6 of them to get my job done. So I honestly didn't know what most of them were. Like, every now and then, like once a year, you would be like, "Oh, I guess I've got to, book my vacation," or I send, or more often, send kudos to friends or whatever it is at the company. But there were a bunch of them you didn't use very often. And there were a bunch you just never used at all. And you were wondering why they were assigned to you. So that is difficult because we're already asking a ton of our employees. And now we're going to add one more app, one more thing on the list of them to do. And so when I was at LinkedIn, the average customer usage on a monthly basis was about 20% for LinkedIn Elevate, which means if you had 1,000 people on, 200 would log in and use it. And the other 800 that had already signed up just wouldn't bother. They were too busy. And so it's, how do you make this even easier? How do you get people to be able to say, "Sure, this sounds great. I just don't want to do any of the heavy lifting." And that's about the ratio you tend to experience on most things. There's the 80-20 rule. So 20%, they're like, "Sign me up," and they're super excited about it. They adopt the new iPhone. They're technology savvy. They get it and they want to do it. And they like seeing the immediate, responses like likes, comments, and etc. So that's super. That 20% are going to log in and they're going to do it. But the other 80%, at Social HP, we built some functionality, which is called Do It For Me. And basically, they can say to the administrator, "You're the genius. You're the one that knows content. You're the marketing person. You know what to write. Why don't you pick the stories, the 3-2-1 ratio, thought leadership, industry news, and company content, and I'll just wipe my hands of it. And you can do it for me." And so that's what we did. We've built out the ability for one marketing person to be able to scale it out for as many employees that say that's the option that they want to select. "I want to be able to share content. I just don't want to have to do any of the work." And it takes the administrator just a few extra seconds. Instead of 10 seconds to share it for themselves, it's an extra 5 seconds to be able to share it for a bunch of other people too. And so that's where we've made the shift in employee advocacy, which is the industry average for all of these platforms is 20% monthly active usage. And our average customer is at 80% monthly active usage.
Wow. Yeah, I think we originally talked, what are you calling them, like super users, people that are
Yes.
pretty excited out of the gates. And I love that, the do it for me, and that's awesome. And just to give people some context, are you guys available on all different platforms, or is it LinkedIn specific, Instagram, Facebook?
So it's LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And then we have a couple of other platforms that are available for, in other parts of the world.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, because managing all of those can be pretty tricky, and that's exciting. I wish we were able to pull up the dashboard so people could see it, but I'm assuming that it's pretty straightforward, easy to use.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to bore the audience with like a product demo, but I will say, if I log in, it's basically just different panels of stories that I could share. And the content that I see is what's applicable to me. So if I'm in marketing, then it's more in line with what my audience likes and cares about. Whereas if I'm a software engineer, I'm going to be sharing stories that are more relevant for my audience. So it's about that relevancy.
A cactus knows how to survive. It can endure scorching heat, limited rainfall, and defends itself against critters daily. Your business is no different. To survive harsh conditions, it's important to develop deep roots using media content that'll continuously nourish and support your marketing efforts day after day. Tactus Media is here to help you determine a strategy and create media content. Together, let's map out the next sequence of videos, podcasts, and social media to help your business thrive. Work with Tactus Media, media tactics that stick. Ouch! Visit tactusmedia.com to learn more. Before diving too much into it, maybe we can personalize this a little bit, and maybe you can talk about like what's your favorite part about like being able to help people through this process, or what brings you the most joy with it.
Yeah, I think for me, just because of my background at LinkedIn and seeing the big challenge, which was around usage, for me, it's about providing the most return on investment for our customers I possibly can. Because that was always a struggle with that particular, with employee advocacy, there's still a lot of value. Even if you have 20% of the employees using it, it's still way more value generated than what you would likely spend. But to be able to, quadruple that on average for our customers is like a dream come true for me. So, I love providing more value than the cost. I way back when I worked in an industry where it was really expensive. Our product was super, super expensive. It was valuable, but I felt it was, more expensive than what the product was worth, which was, I was in the headhunting industry. And so it's a super important service. If you need to hire somebody and you can't find them, an outside agency can go and they can find them for you. But boy, does it cost a lot of money. And so LinkedIn, really did a great job of lowering those costs and making that more accessible. And then, moving down the road of capitalizing on assets, employee advocacy does the same thing and scales it up. But now we're at another category, another stratosphere of ROI. Something that I wanted to shift the topic onto, if you don't mind,
sure, yeah,
is how LinkedIn looked at in comparing companies, and they would do it to sort of let you know where you stand. So, for example, if I wanted to hire somebody and I worked for Bank of America, for example, great company, we would be able to tell Bank of America how you stack rank against your competitors for whatever kind of role you're trying to fill. So, for example, if I needed to hire a software engineer, they're obviously not known for technology, they're known for banking, although they'll have a huge technology department. I may not be as sexy sounding as working for Google, Google, LinkedIn, all the tech companies. There's so many of them out there that they have a much easier time trying to hire that kind of talent. And even them, they still struggle. So if I needed to hire technology people and I'm at the Bank of America, I want to know what I'm up against. And so we'd be able to tell them, who do you want to know against, how your stack ranked? So if, who are the other 9 companies that you really care about? And we'd be able to tell them on all the things that people evaluate, why they would want a job, for example, like salary, location, interest in work, all those kinds of things, how they stack ranked against these other 9 companies. And then that was a great way for us to then tell, for example, like that company like Bank of America, these are the things you need to do to change those perceptions with the audience that you need to hire, because otherwise you're always going to be struggling. And then if they weren't willing to do the work, then we would say, well, maybe don't try and compete with those companies, maybe try and compete with these other companies that are a little bit more mid-level, and don't go for the absolute best, because you're just never going to be able to get, close an offer. The same goes for marketing. And so LinkedIn did a really great job of being able to explain something called share of voice. And this is, we could do it right down to the topic. And so, for example, let's say you're a technology company and you specialize in artificial intelligence. We'd be able to tell you what your share of the total voice is on the topic of artificial intelligence. So LinkedIn would look at every single conversation that happens on the platform, how many times artificial intelligence is discussed. And then they would say, and then this is the total percentage of those conversations that you're involved in. whether that's through paid campaigns, whether that's through your employees talking, whether that's through your company page updates, whatever it is. And then we'd also be able to stack rank you against your competitors. So we'd say, who are your biggest competitors? And then we'd be able to tell you what their share of voice was on artificial intelligence. So then, hey, like if I've got 2% and this other company's got 20% and we're the same size company, we're not going to be the same size for long because they're doing 10 times more reach than we have. So we need to do something about it. It was a good argument for us, to be able to sell more marketing services, more advertising, but it makes it a really compelling case as to why you want your employees sharing content. Because if your employees are sharing more stories, whether it's thought leadership or industry news, if you're in AI and they're sharing, thought leadership around artificial intelligence, they're sharing industry news around artificial intelligence, and they're sharing company content, you're going to change your percentage, your share of voice, to a much, much, much higher level. And then that, again, around that topic of making your company more approachable, making your salespeople, have an easier time of closing deals, this makes it really, really compelling.
Totally.
And then if we look at salespeople, we would then give them a social selling index. And the social selling index, you can actually, if you Google social selling index LinkedIn, you can basically put in your member number, and then it'll tell you what your ranking is against all other people on the LinkedIn platform. And it'll tell you how you stack rank against your peers in your network. And so that social selling index was a good indicator of how well you were driving activity towards your social selling efforts. And we knew at LinkedIn, people that were doing social selling, meaning engaging in conversations, sharing of content, all online, they were 70% more likely to hit their quota. Wow. So if you could tell the salesperson, all you need to do is share content, connect with people, have conversations, you're 70% more likely to hit your quota, my hand's going to go up and say, I want to participate.
Yeah, that's a big number for sure. And that would make a big difference for them. That's awesome. So there's a lot of, I really like that ranking. Is it like a ranking tool or a rating tool, or is it both? Where it's.
So for social selling, the social selling index is something they have that you can literally just type it in yourself. So you can Google that and you can find out your social selling index, and you can change it. So you can literally see, this is my social selling index today. And if you share, say, 10 things over the next month, and then you check a month later, your social selling index will be higher because you've participated more in those kinds of behaviors. On the other side, which would be around, stack ranking against your competitive peer set, that's something that LinkedIn would do on a custom, basis for clients. So they would say like, hey, we need to know, how we're competing for sales or talent or whatever it is, or marketing efforts or our brand recognition in certain markets, and LinkedIn would be able to tell them and give them that information. But it was a custom report we had to do.
Wow, that's awesome. I think that's really helpful for people. And yeah, I think a lot of times you can be posting stuff on social and you don't really know how it's going to be affecting, but to be able to literally go in and look. Yeah, it sounds like the social selling index isn't part of what you guys do, but it is a nice barometer for people. And then you streamline that process for them of getting the content and just being able to put it out there, which is excellent.
Yeah, the net of it is, why do I want to do, like, why should I want my employee sharing content, and why as an employee would I want to be sharing content? So once those things are clear, then it just becomes, what's the best way to do it? And in my experience, and knowing the market really, really well, and also having years of experience at LinkedIn, I know for a fact the best way to do it is through social HP, because they're the only next generation platform that can actually manage the usage issue. Because you can lead people right to the door, but they have to take that step and walk through it. Well, we've done the walking through it. We've basically turned it into an escalator. So all they need to do is just step on the escalator, and we'll do all the rest of the work for them. So that simplification of understanding the value and knowing why you want to do it, but not having to do the legwork behind it, I think it's a really, really huge plus. For that 20% that are super shares and really actively engaged in social, that's awesome, and they're going to do it anyway. But it's how do you help that other 80%? Because that's a huge opportunity. It's a huge missed opportunity. If you've got 80% of your employees have all these amazing networks, and yet you can't get them to activate them, then you've got this this huge weight sitting over on the side of all this return on investment that you could be capitalizing on, and there's just no way to do it. And hounding people is not the way to do it. I mean, I could email you 50 times a day saying, please do this, please do this, please do this. And it would be the exact same experience as to if your employee was a shill for your company and only just promoting, buy, 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 everyone turns off. Well, your employees turn off to it too. There's only so much we want to ask of our employees, only so much lifting, they can fit into their day.
Totally. I think you used the example of, hey, when you walk over someone's desk, hey, can you move out of the way? I just want to post this.
Yeah.
You can't do that for hundreds of people. And I'm glad that you brought this up because I had written down like incentivize, but it sounds like the incentive is the kind of that intrinsic motivation. Yeah, you're going to increase sales or increase visibility. Right. Is that kind of the extent of it? You guys don't have any like built-in gamified things within social HP? Oh, you do?
We
Wow.
do. Yeah. We have like people can do contests and they can redeem for points or gift cards and all those kinds of things. That's if companies want to implement that, they're welcome to do it. They do provide a lift, but it typically is fairly short-lived. I've spoken with people that have said, yeah, and then once I won the contest, I didn't I didn't care anymore. And it's true because your company's not going to let you win the contest every week. So if it's just the same person winning all the time, that demotivates everybody else. But as soon as that one person wins, they get demotivated because that's their motivation. But not everybody's motivated by a gamification. To think like everyone cares about winning a contest, then whatever kind of contest that you could put in front of them, you've done it before, every single employee would be bent over trying to win it. And that's not how it's, some people are money motivated, some people want recognition, some people it's about the greater good. And so a game, gamification only does so much and it only does it for so long. Whereas the understanding the real reasons behind why I would want to do this, once I truly understand them, those are with me. Like I know, like, oh yeah, if I do this, I'm 70% more likely to hit my sales number. The trouble is, can I build a routine and can I build the habit of doing this every single day? And building a new habit's not easy. It's really not. You have to do something consistently and ideally at the same time every single day in order to be successful in building that new habit. Well, we're saying we'll give you all the benefits of building that new habit without having to do any of the work.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys do a lot of that heavy lifting for them. So
right.
I think that's fantastic. Thank you for explaining that. And then this is kind of one of my questions I had was, do people need to log into social HP? Do you guys plug into an intranet? Do you guys have any integration functionality for people?
Yeah. So first, that when they sign up, they decide which networks they want to connect. So that's up to them. And also just one quick note, all of these references I made about like LinkedIn specifically, they're really applicable to all of these platforms, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The principles are the same around marketing and advertising on most of them. It's just really, it's who's the audience. But so yes, the employees need to decide which networks they connect. And then we provide integration. So if they're using single sign-on, like a tool like Okta, then we can enable that. And then also if they're using marketing tools on the back end, so if they're using things like HubSpot or other kinds of tools, we can integrate with those and deliver content into the tool and also reporting back in. If they're using CRM tools like Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics and any of the other ones, then we can integrate with those. If they're using applicant tracking systems to be able to drive talent acquisition use case, then we can integrate in with their applicant tracking system. So then that way, all of this activity gets tied into the thing they care about the most, which is either generating sales, generating specific leads, or generating new hires.
That's awesome. Thank you. And yeah, I kind of put you on the spot there, and thank you for breaking all those down. There's so many integrations and so many platforms and tools out there that and they all have funky names. So trying to keep track of all those gets a little
where we're headed, I think where we're headed on the proving it out front. I mean, obviously we want to deliver information into the tools that they're already using, but where we're headed on the proving it out front, especially if you're looking around the marketing and sales use case, one technology that we have is being able to help companies getting people to sign up for webinars and to download their white papers. So we've got some technology built into the platform to help boost that. But the other piece is knowing what happens after they engage with your social shares. So you've got an employee sharing out a story, and then what do the people who like, comment, or click on it, where do they go after that? And so we're doing a lot around reverse IP lookup. So that way we can tell you like, hey, people from these companies came to your website after they clicked on your social shares, they went to your product page, they went to your pricing page, and it was, this many people from these companies, this is how many minutes they spent on each of your pages. So then that way you can go back to the salesperson and say, hey, we noticed when you shared this, people from these companies came. Do you have any contacts there? Because they actually went to our pricing page. Perhaps you should, book a meeting. And then they'll be like, oh yeah, like I actually know 2 or 3 people. Be like, okay, well, it sounds like they're pretty far down the sales funnel. So we're able to provide some of that information. And then we're looking at other technologies to be able to integrate to provide more knowledge around those companies that are visiting. So the goal is to get closer and closer and closer and building in a little bit of AI to eventually try and give you a really good understanding of not only which company, but odds are this is probably who came.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to give you like literally like, these people from this company, these are probably the ones that came and visited, and you might want to reach out.
That's awesome. Rather than knowing like this brand came, but actually knowing who is I don't know if it's necessarily the decision maker, but the person to go to that had interest, and it's a much, much warmer lead than anything else. You kind of beat me to the question. That was you guys do have an engagement tracking, and that was it. So,
well, I'll say on the virality side, a lot of people think, if I share a story, like let's say I share a story and you like it, or you comment on it, or you reshare it. Those are all publicly facing actions. So then I think, okay, you're the one that saw it. You're the one that engaged with it. Well, the answer is also your entire network also gets to see it. Because if you like, comment, or reshare, it'll show up in the news feed for everyone you're connected with. So now if I'm selling, let's say you're a target client, and let's say pick a company that, some company brand that you can think of.
how about Toyota?
Okay. So you work at Toyota. You're part of the buying team that I'm interested in selling into. Well, because you work at Toyota, that means you also know everybody else on the buying team, which means they're also likely going to be first degree contacts of yours. And odds are you also know a bunch of other people at Toyota. So if I get you to like, comment, or reshare anything that I do, and we're first degree connections, it's also going to go in front of the rest of the buying team. So now not only am I building up visibility and brand reputation with you, I'm also doing it with everybody else that's part of that decision-making process.
Interesting.
So that's also, I think it's sort of like a missed opportunity that people don't sort of realize, like the power of just sharing a valuable story. And that story isn't necessarily a product. It might not be a service. It could be us highlighting an employee, what wonderful work they do and how they donate their time to charity and how we're so proud of them. And what happens is you're like, wow, Jonathan works for like a really awesome company. They celebrate their employees, and oh yeah, they are trying, we are a potential customer of theirs. And now everybody else on your buying team is building that, visibility around the brand, and getting that kinship or that feeling about the brand that you really, really want people to have. So then later when I'm presenting to the buying team, if 5 or 6 of those have been in front of everybody over the last little while, they've all got familiarity with me, and they've all got familiarity with some of the things that we're doing in the industry, in the, from our company, et cetera. So it makes it a lot easier. And you guys are then a lot more receptive at Toyota to my sales pitch. Totally. So that's the idea of the power of sharing stories, because it's not just about the one person that you're engaging, it's everyone that's in their network once they do that engagement.
Yeah, sorry for having to use the car analogy. I don't know if it's
no, that's
probably
a good
would
one.
have been good in the social or this software or digital sphere, but yeah, I like that idea where everyone kind of like rises together. You see what other people are doing, you're able to, I don't know, cater your pitch or cater to the audience accordingly. Yeah, pretty powerful stuff. And I would imagine for a lot of people, this might be kind of cutting edge, info, but this will be common practice, what you guys are doing is cutting edge, but just kind of the nature of the social world and how the social media world and how important it is to build these real, like well, I say real connections, but a real connection would be in person, but these are real connections online, which is a really powerful way to, reach people at mass and reach people that are probably more interested in whatever it is that you're selling versus just going to a general networking event and hoping for the best.
Yeah, I mean, there's value in every single piece of, like how we could be spending our time from a networking or event perspective. But the net of this, I think, is that there's a small percentage of companies that are doing it. And the ones that are doing it are really getting an advantage over their competitors. So you can wait till everyone's doing it and everyone's eating your lunch. And then you're like, oh gosh, I guess we really have to do this now. Or you can lead from the front. And although this may sound intimidating, like, okay, now we have to come up with a bunch of content, or, most companies actually have quite a bit. And if you also keep to that sharing cadence, you only need one in every 6 pieces of content to actually be about the company. And there's a lot of things that you can talk about. So the rest of it, we can pull in for you automatically and make it really, really easy. So it may sound intimidating to try and take on a program like this. How do we go about it? But that's what I'm here for. I'm here as the company's partner to talk them through it, help them through it, and we have the support and services in order to be able to really get people so that if they if a company wants to amplify their message and do it in a really inexpensive way and drive a lot of value, that's how we come to the table. So we don't just sort of say, hey, buy some software and good luck. We really give a lot of best practices and a lot of support and help along the way, so that way they can be successful. Otherwise, we wouldn't stay in business.
Totally. Yeah, maybe you can explain to people what that process looks like. So if people are interested, people listening on the call now, if they're interested, should they reach out to you directly? Go to Social HP? What's a good way of starting that process?
I mean, so if they want to reach out to me, my name's Jonathan. So it's jonathan@socialhp.com. So nice and easy. Otherwise, they can visit our website, socialhp.com, and they can check out our services there. They can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. If they just type in my name, Jonathan Baldock, I'll come up. And so they can connect with me or message me there. So those are probably sort of the 3 easiest ways in order to be able to build that connection and start the conversation. There's no obligation to have a conversation and then have this instantaneous expectation that they have to buy something from us. Really, half of our job is about educating the industry about the value of this kind of technology, and then those that are ready for it, great, and those that are ready later, that's okay too.
That's awesome. Yeah, and we'll post those links, as many as the ones that I could remember, into the show notes.
Sure, great.
Along with your email. And then what is there like a kind of an onboarding process? Do you give companies like 3 to 6 months for things to really be rolling?
Yeah. So normally, I mean, first off, we'd recommend that companies, their pilot should be the first year. Companies that think like, hey, I'm going to sign up for a month and see what happens, that's a bad idea. It's really hard to like implement this, get it up and running, and get it running smooth in a very short order. So a little bit of thought to to getting it going, I think, is an important thing. So we help them build that structure, an implementation plan, knowing who are the right people at the company that they should be engaging with, identifying the employees that would be best to start with, et cetera, et cetera. And then we do several different trainings. So we do a training for the people, the administrators. We do training for the early adopters, and of course, we do training for the masses. We record all of them. We have 5x24 live chat right on our tool, and then of course we have lots of help support right on the website. So there's a lot of support to be able to help people, and they can access the tool wherever they want. So we have mobile app for Android and iOS, and of course we have the desktop version. So wherever they want to spend their time, we bring the tool to them, so that way it's nice and easy. And again, for most employees, they'll actually be signing up and saying, it'd be great if you could do this for me. And we actually have 2 kinds of calendars. So they can have the completely hands-off approach, which is, sure, pick the stories, sounds great, share it out for me. And then we also have the second kind of calendar, which is a locked calendar, which means employees are saying, hey, build that perfect sharing cadence, but I'll approve it. So we basically send them a notification saying, hey, this is set to go out for you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Can you just review and approve it? And if they don't approve it, it doesn't go. And if they review and approve it, great, or they can edit it and personalize it even more.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's pretty slick to be able to have that, optionality or functionality. Well, this is the VidMark podcast, and we talked about, you were talking about video trainings. Do you have any, thoughts about like sharing a video content, or do you guys have any video functionality with
Yeah,
association?
so it depends on the platform. So each platform has their own requirements. LinkedIn is adopting native video, so you'll be able to upload content and whatnot. But if you can't personally upload native video, then you can actually pull it from your LinkedIn company page. So you can share native video there, and then you can pull it in. Video is definitely the kind of content that is generally the most compelling, especially if it's short and sweet. Next most compelling, my experience, is actually lists. So like the top 5 this, the top 3 that. Here are 3 ways you can, because people want to know what are those 3 ways. Those are also very, very compelling. We also provide companies the ability to provide different images and different copy options for each of the platforms. So for example, if I'm sharing to LinkedIn and I have 100 employees sharing it out, I don't want them all sharing it on the same day at the same time with the same copy and the same image. So we can provide so that they can share it over the course of days or weeks. And we can provide multiple different image options and multiple copy options so that everybody's sharing different versions. And then we record all of the results. So like which image and which copy option actually work the best, so that way you can do A/B testing, so you can find out what messaging and what kinds of images are most compelling to my employees' audiences.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was about to say that sounds like A/B testing, and that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah, I'd be able to kind of see which works, and then if you kind of recycle that campaign or recycle that content for the next year,
you can change it up.
Yeah.
A lot of content companies spend a lot of money on with agencies producing content, and then it gets used for a campaign, and then it never gets used again. So why not utilize it in so many different ways? May as well try and double up or really triple up on the value of that investment that you've made with an agency. So if you're spending money on content, and then you're spending money on paid campaigns, why not make it even more valuable and have your employees share it out at a fraction of the price? So this is all part of that that ecosystem of people focusing on trying to drive value and extending the reach of their content. And also, it's expensive to do A/B testing on a paid campaign.
Yep.
Because you've got to dump money on the one, and you got to dump money on the next one, and you got to dump money on the next one, and then you find out it was the third one that worked, and now you kind of feel like you didn't really get any value out of the first one, and it's lost money. Well, take those copy options, put it through the employees first, find out which is driving the most engagement, and then circle back and run your paid campaign on the version that's the best.
Wow. I'm going to tell everyone that's listening to this, rewind that and listen to that again, because that's a really good methodology to, saving money, being more efficient. And that's fantastic. Well, I only have really like one last question for you. And this one's kind of, we'll see what answer you have here, but it's, do you have any future predictions for the industry? This is just going to become more and more of the norm. You mentioned that some companies are going to be left in the dust and going to have to scramble to try to catch up. Anything else you can see for 2022 and beyond?
I think from my perspective, what I'm seeing is it's the evolution of the platforms. They're I don't mean like the like LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. They're all constantly evolving, and to be honest, they're kind of converging in many ways. Like LinkedIn, there's a lot more general sharing and less business kind of content that's going on. I think it's still the best content and the best platform for business, but that doesn't mean that the other platforms can't be driving a lot of value for companies depending on their target audience. But where in the space that I sit in consulting for employee advocacy, the way it's headed, the way I see it's headed, we're the first that built out the functionality to be able to get everyone to use it. So that's number one. If you're going to spend, whether it's $5,000 or $100,000 or $1 million on these kinds of platforms, why not generate the most ROI? So that's one note. But then converting it into how do we know who these people are? So I think the technology around providing intelligence and information, that's where we're spending a lot of our time and effort, is building out the intelligence on the back end, so we can really predictively tell you who these people are that are engaging with your content and how interested they are. So they're showing buyer intent. So getting down the road of intent-based marketing and conversion is really, I think, where this is headed.
Wow. Yeah, and I really appreciate what you guys are doing by educating, getting people more aware of like the power behind these tools, because yeah, it's a great way to leverage things that you might already have. Yeah, well, Jonathan, this has been awesome. Are there any things I haven't asked you that you want to talk about with the platform?
No, I think we've covered off some of the big points, the big differentiators, between our platform and what's out there. Whether an organization chooses to use Social HP or another one, I think there's just great value in utilizing this kind of technology. So I would just say I would leave it at that. It'd be wonderful if everyone becomes our customer, but even if they don't and they choose another platform, there's a lot of value to be derived from using this kind of technology. And if you're smart about it and you're further down the road of the technology and marketing funnel, then you can be really, really smart with how you stage out content, so that way you can almost use it like a targeting and retargeting kind of program. So there's a lot of opportunity, is what I would say. I'd just leave it at a lot of opportunity on the table, and there's just all they need to do is just go and grab it.
That's awesome. And like you mentioned earlier, there's probably a lot more content out there, or a lot more opportunities than businesses realize. And it's only through, using this kind of platform and streamlining that process that they'll be able to, find success. So Jonathan, I want to say thank you for coming on to the podcast. This has been awesome. I guess to let people know, you're tuning in you're 3 hours ahead, right?
Yeah, I'm in Toronto.
Yeah. So it's about 2 in the afternoon for you almost.
Just about.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
All right. Thanks so much for having me on. I really, really appreciate it. It's been a great conversation.
Totally. Yeah. I just want to acknowledge you, appreciate all the hard work that you're doing. And thanks for spreading the word about social media and, making the world a better place. That I think that at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do is, spread good value and help people make informed decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. As the show Silicon Valley says, making the world a better place.
Yeah.
That's what we want to do.
I love it. All right, Jonathan,
appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in to VidMark, a place for all your video marketing needs. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform and tune in every Thursday morning on either iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and more. For a behind-the-scenes look and some bonus tips, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Until next time, good luck with your video marketing efforts, and remember, always hit the mark.